Hello, this is Mohammad Amin Ghorbani and welcome to the Voice of an Iranian. Today we are joined by Shabbir hassanally, political analyst and media activist from Leicester, UK. Hello, Mr. hassanally, and welcome to the Voice of an Iranian.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a year that General Qasem Soleimani was assassinated by the US Army in Baghdad airport. We are going to discuss the matter of the assassination of General Soleimani and what the United States has achieved in the region, and after a year, what has been going on in the region. My first question is that what did Haj Qasem do to deserve to be assassinated? What did he do in the region, and what was the United States' objective?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think one of the things we have to understand that the United States, as far as the region is concerned, not just the region, the entire world, the United States acts and thinks of itself as the emperor, as the one that controls everything. What Haj Qasem, and not just Haj Qasem, but the entire resistance axis, with Haj Qasem at the front of it, one of the key generals for this, he made sure that the plans and the games of the empire didn't attain success, that they were unsuccessful, that they were broken. For example, if we take the Daesh project that obviously is Haj Qasem is most famous for defeating, the US wanted Daesh because they had this plan. We know General Wellesley Clark had said that they're going after 7 countries in 7 years or something. And among those countries was Syria, was Iraq, was Libya, and of course Iran at the end of it. And they created this cancerous entity along with, of course, Emirati, Saudi, etc. funding. They created this Daesh. And if Haj Qasem had not stopped this Daesh, then right now America would have fully occupied the entire region militarily, because they would have used Daesh as an excuse to come into the region and stay there, because Daesh would keep on making fake attacks, if you like, against the US. So Haj Qasem exposed what the US was doing, and not only exposed, he defeated it in a way that I think has never really been done before. And the US is scrambling around. It's trying to find, how do I say, it's trying to find excuses and ways to say to everyone that they are the ones that defeated Daesh. Just a few days ago, I was watching when there was this cyber attack on so-called Israel, alleged cyber attack on Israel, and they were blaming Iran. I was looking around and I saw that America has, of course, said many times that it disrupted the cyber networks of Daesh. And, Iran is supporting Daesh and Al Qaeda. All of these lies. And the problem is their lies are becoming contradictory to their own lies, not to what the resistance axis and what the truth is, but their own lies are becoming contradictory and damaging to themselves. So, this is like this. Look, we have to understand, I've said this before. America is an infant. It is like a 5-year-old child going around with like very strong guns and bombs and everything and trying to beat up on a mature gentleman. And it's not going to work, because the man will turn around and slap the child, put them in a room, and tell them, until you behave, you will be quiet. And to be fair, Haj Qasem did this to America. He slapped them and he put them in their place. And so now they're obviously upset, because bullies and spoiled children don't like to be told what to do. They like to be the ones in control. Haj Qasem showed the entire world, showed our brothers and sisters in Palestine, in Yemen, in Kashmir, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, in Iran, everywhere, that you don't need America. You don't need America. You can defeat America. And he did it with bravery, with honor, with dignity. He was never frightened of death. He was never frightened of having to leave this temporary abode, because first and foremost, what he did is he ensured that the name of Allah was the Most High, Kalimatullahi al-Ulya. And because he did this, Allah gave him the tawfiq to be able to inspire millions, not thousands, but millions of people. You know, people say that, you know, they killed, America says, oh, they repeat it, Trump has been repeating it thousands of times, Pompeo, everyone, that they killed Qasem Soleimani and they, you know, he was a big terrorist and everything. But at the same time, they know, and the reason they keep repeating it, they don't repeat that they killed Osama bin Laden as many times as they repeat about Haj Qasem. So they are really frightened of Haj Qasem, and they know that in killing Haj Qasem, they actually made Haj Qasem much more powerful, much more stronger, because um, many people that I know, 1 year ago when they heard about this man Qasem Soleimani, many people didn't even know who he was. They had no experience of him. They had no information about him. And many people came to ask me that, you know, who is this person? Can you tell us this, that, and the other? And when I told them, when many other people told them, they began to like dig around more. They wanted more information, and America saw this. So they funded this person. I'm not going to mention his name, who wrote this rubbish book about Haj Qasem called The Shadow Commander or something like this, which is packed full of lies. It's remarkably full of lies. And you know, they released this book to kind of say, oh yeah, and this book, all it does is confirm what the American narrative is, that he was a terrorist, that he did this, that he did this. But America knows that it's committed a tragic mistake, a mistake that has shot itself. And now, when inshallah Haj Qasem Soleimani's daughter comes out with her book on Haj Qasem Soleimani, who he was, and other people are also working on books. I myself am working on some articles, like longer essays about who Haj Qasem was. I think once the world begins to see who is Haj Qasem, the reality that the objectives that the US had in the region with killing Haj Qasem and Haj Abu Mahdi, these will never be realized. The US will be leaving the region. A year ago, Hassan said they can leave horizontally or they can leave vertically. It seems that the US powers that be want them to leave horizontally. It's very sad, but one way or the other, the US is leaving. The military, all of this stuff is leaving, not just Iraq, but the region, the entire region. And this is something the US knows is going to happen. It knows it can't stop it. And so it has failed in its objectives, which were to have control over the region. It's failing in its objectives with the Arab Zionists of Saudi and Emirat and Oman and other countries that have made peace with the Zionist entity and have betrayed the Palestinians. All of these are mistake upon mistake upon mistake that the Zionists and the Americans and the West is making, and the US will not achieve any of its objectives. The moment it killed Haj Qasem, everything was over for the US. They killed a nafs al-zakiyya, a pure soul, and that is something that is unforgivable. You know, Allah will never forgive, the believers will never forgive, and the US knows that the clock is now ticking.
As the U.S. officials have repeatedly said that uh, they want to evacuate the region, yet they interfere the most. What do they have in mind for the region, especially Syria, Iraq, Yemen?
Just like with any empire, if you look at how any empire operates, when it is forced to leave a region, like the British Empire was forced to leave a region, like when the Roman Empire was forced to leave various parts, it's extremely painful for them because, of course, the empire has invested a lot in taking control of this region. So for them to then have to just leave it, it's very painful. So they try and create proxies and governors that look like they're from the local people, but are actually working for the American system and take their orders from the empire. And this is where the problem is with America right now. America is trying to implant a U.S. sponsored, U.S. supporting regime in places like Iraq and Syria and Lebanon. And The problem they're having is, again, the remnants of Hajj Qasem Soleimani. You have things like Hashd al-Sha'bi, you have the resistance factions in Syria, you have the resistance axis in Lebanon, in Palestine. They will not allow a US controlled governor to be in authority. And even if there is someone there who has sympathies within the government, say in Iraq, who has sympathy with the US, who is friendly with the US, that person will not be able to achieve anything and very soon will be thrown out. So the US is trying to create a situation where when it leaves the region, it has its people in the region, but it knows this time is very different to when previous empires were dying, if you like. Previous empires, they were able to get away with this, and to an extent, the British were able to leave their lackeys in India, which ultimately resulted in the fragmentation of India into Pakistan and Bangladesh. And that's another discussion. I don't want to get into that. And of course, that resulted in the situation with Kashmir. They left their lackeys there after the end of the Othmaniya Empire, the Ottoman Empire, which had its problems. Don't get me wrong. The Ottoman Empire was a corrupt entity. However, at least there was cohesion within the Muslim areas. And what the Westerners did when they broke it up in 1917, 1918, is they decided to put their own governors in. And this was all part of the British Empire trying to assert its authority. They've tried the same in Iran. Of course, we know about 1953 and when they imposed Shah and removed Dr. Mossadegh. And even before that, when they ended the Qajars or corrupted the Qajars and put in Pahlavi, Reza Pahlavi. So the empire doesn't want to leave without having its interests secured. But this time it's not going to happen. But this is, I think, what they're trying to do. They're trying to secure their interests in Iraq and Syria and have some people there who will keep waving the US flag, if you like, and saying USA, USA, USA. And much like the Gharb Zadagan that we have in Iran, who, Daiman, they want to be America, America. But to be fair, Alhamdulillah, many of these type of Gharb Zadagan, they're sitting in Los Angeles, and it's better for them to be in Los Angeles. There's no space for them in Iran. If you want to be in Iran, you should be with the lovers of Hajj Qasem and the lovers of Rahmar.
Will the assassination of General Soleimani keep Israel safer? And how do you see the future of the axis of resistance in the region and maybe outside the region?
Okay, firstly, there is nothing that can keep the Zionist entity safe. It itself is a danger to itself. In terms of how the resistance axis will continue, the resistance axis becomes stronger every time one of the leaders is killed. And I've said this many times before in other outlets, I've written about it. And this is actually a sign of how ignorant and stupid the enemy, the Israelis, the Americans, the British, the Westerners are. If they understood how this resistance axis works, then they would be frightened of killing people. Because when they kill, when the Israelis, when they killed Sayyid Abbas al-Musawi or Sheikh Raghib Harb, they were under the impression that somehow Hezbollah is going to just disintegrate and fall apart. What happened? Sayyid Hassan happened. And what happened when Sayyid Hassan happened? إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ. That Israel was forced to come out of the region. It was forced to come out of Lebanon. And now, after 2006 especially, no matter what the Israelis might say to the media, no matter what, saber rattling and noise they might make, even America, they know that a war with Lebanon, with Hezbollah, is something they will not survive. Hezbollah has targets on every single strategically important target inside the occupied lands. And the Zionists know they can't do anything, and they certainly know they can't go against Iran. So the resistance axis becomes stronger. They tried their project, like I said, in Syria. They tried their project in Yemen. They tried their project in Iraq. And they have failed everywhere. In every place they have failed. So the resistance axis, with every shaheed, with every martyr that is dropped, that is given, be it someone like Shaheed Hojaji, be it someone like Shaheed Ibrahim Hadi or Ibrahim Himmat, Shaheed Avini, Shaheed Beheshti, Shaheed Mutahari, Shaheed Bahonar, etc., etc., Shaheed Mustafa Khomeini, or Shaheed Mahmoud Baqir al-Sadr, or Muhammad Sadiq al-Sadr, or Sayyid Muhammad Baqir al-Hakim, etc. There's so many names. We could spend hours mentioning these names. With every shaheed that is made, the movement becomes 10 times stronger, infinitely stronger. And so the enemy, if it had a brain, it would actually become bodyguards of all of these leaders of the resistance, because it should understand that when the enemy kills one of our leaders, that is a massive change to the system. And the enemy always, it might take a temporary success, it might think it's won for a little while, but ultimately the end is for the enemy. And this is because this is from one of the promises of Allah. This is from the Karbala movement. When Karbala happened, Imam Hussein was, if you look at it on the surface, Imam Hussein was killed. But what happened after that? Said Zainab happened, Imam Sajjad happened, and today, 1400 years later, no one has time for Yazid. Everyone has love and honor, and you mention the name Hussein, and people's hearts start breaking, and they remember, and it makes them angrier against the Taghut, against the enemies. So the enemy, Israel is not safe. Israel will not be safe. Israel is stolen land. Just like anyone who comes along and steals someone's house and occupies that house, they are never safe until they have left. Because the people that have had their homes stolen, they will not give up. You might be able to buy some of them off by paying them lots and lots of money, but at the same time, there is a degree of honor and there's a degree of ghaira, which is like a pride, which you can't just take someone's land if they don't want to give it to you. It's their land. You can't steal it. Go away. And if you steal it, even if at that point you want to start paying them, they'll take your money maybe, but they will never forgive you and they will never let you stay in peace in the occupied land. So Israel is not safe. The assassination of Haj Qasem or Haj Fakhrizadeh or anyone just makes the movement stronger, and it puts another nail in the coffin of the Zionist project.
What was the role of General Soleimani in empowering the access of resistance?
Haj Qasem, or General Qasem, he was literally the embodiment of the perfect general. Whenever he went to the areas that were defending against Daesh, first of all, he made sure that he took supplies, that he made sure they had weapons, they had food, they had clothing, they had medicines, they had bandages, everything they need. Secondly, he gave them that morale boost. He increased their love for him and for the cause, and gave them that strength that, yes, it's a very difficult day. Maybe one day, there were many operations, hatta in Difa Muqaddas, there were many operations where many people were made shaheed. It was painful, it was difficult, many good people were gone. But Haj Qasim is the type of person, he strengthens you when you feel down. He reminds you that, well, look at Karbala. Karbala, you had all of these people died, but Imam Hussein still won. So don't worry about these things. This happens. Our brothers who have died, they are shuhada. They have had the best gift. And Allah only takes His best people for shaheed. So we should be happy for these people. And he was someone who you fell in love with. Even if you met them, you didn't meet them, doesn't matter. You thought when you read about them, when you see them, you fall in love with them because they're brave. They have all of the sifat. There's a beautiful sermon of Imam Hussein, the sermon of Mina, where Imam Hussein is talking about the leaders of the people and why the forces of Yazid have managed to corrupt the people of Kufa and made them go against Imam Hussein. In that sermon, Imam Hussein talks about each of the qualities of the believers. I'm not going to go into that over here. I invite everyone to go and read it. It's available online. But one of the key qualities is that of shuja', of braveness. And braveness, but not braveness to the like the Americans where it's arrogant. You know, we have the biggest guns, we have this, we have that. No, braveness which is built on the fact that look, Allah is with us. It's all good. You know, the enemies are throwing all manner of bombs, everything. Okay, no problem. Our ally is Allah. That trust, that bravery that comes about because you trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what Hajj Qasim gave. He gave many things to the resistance axis, but he gave them that morale. When he went to Palestine, and you know, he went in some places, he went openly, some places he went more hidden because of the circumstance. But when he went to Palestine, and I believe that said Hassan even spoke about this, but when he went to Palestine, he went and he gave new life to the Palestinian movement. Especially after the martyrdom of Fatih Shaqaqi of Palestine Islamic Jihad, there was a lot of problems, and there was also Israel was doing a lot of fitna between our brothers in Palestine. And Hajj Qasim came along and he gave them that strength and that unity and that build to be able to fight back and to be able to make that resistance against the Zionists. That is now, you know, Alhamdulillah, now, a year after he's passed away, all of that work is now coming to fruition because now all of the Palestinian factions have said we're going to work together. We're going to work in a united way. And this was the most important thing. They were not successful because they were all over the place. Now they're working together. You will see many successes. And you can see that that unity, it's the same reason for the success of our brothers in Yemen and especially in Lebanon. In Lebanon, before you had many, many different factions. But among the things that Shahid Mustafa Shamran did this, Haj Qasim did this, Imad Maghniya did this, Said Hassan, Said Abbas, Imam Khomeini, Said Al-Qaid, everyone worked to bring the people together. And the enemy, this is why in Lebanon, the enemy desperately wants that disunity, desperately wants to pit this person against that person. And, you know, there are some unfortunately weak-minded people, but these people, of course, they are not from the resistance people. They become confused, but the resistance itself is the strongest in Lebanon, and it's united and it's strong.